Thank you, Josh. Welcome, everyone. I'm Michelle. Ann and I are going to talk to you a little bit today about resources for open textbooks. I'm going to show you a few websites where you can actually find open textbooks, and Ann's going to talk to you about library resources for open textbooks. All right, so we've all heard the news about standard textbooks, and if you've attended any of these lectures or sessions, you know that textbooks are super expensive now. In the last 10 years, the cost of textbooks has increased by 73%. That's outrageous. 65% of students have not purchased a textbook for a class because they can't afford it. And we see that a lot here in the library. And I think I can speak for everybody that works in research services. When the semester begins, that's most of our questions. People coming to the desk, they want to know they can get their textbook, they can't afford it, or they can't afford it until they get their student loan. So it's a problem. 30% of students, and this is some information I found just recently, it's fairly new, 30% of students have used financial aid to pay for textbooks. That number is even higher at community colleges. 50% of students use financial aid to purchase textbooks. So not only are students getting gouged first time buying textbooks, but the price, they're getting gouged and paying interest on those student loans. So they're paying an awful lot for textbooks. About $3 billion annually is spent in financial aid on textbooks by students in the United States. Another problem with standard textbooks is that the content of those books are locked by the copyright holder. You may like parts of a textbook for your curriculum, or it might fit part of your curriculum, but sometimes the whole textbook doesn't work for you, and that's different with open textbooks. You can create the textbook that you want. You don't have to. You're not stuck with a textbook that is, that you're using 50 or 60% of. So open textbooks are part of the larger open educational resources. They're just one component of it. Open educational resources is comprised of many different things. It's open textbooks, it's open courseware, video, audio, lesson plans. There's a lot of things that encompass open educational resources. They're faculty written, they're peer reviewed, they're published under an open license, usually a Creative Commons license. That means that they're free to download, they're free to remix, they're free to reuse, they're free to do whatever you want to do with them. Also, a lot of some of the companies that I'm going to show you today, are the organizations that are working with open textbooks, allow students to purchase a print copy. These print copies range anywhere from about $10 to about $40. I have seen a couple of them that are a little more expensive, or approximately the cost of printing. So they have the option, students have the option of having a print copy as well, and studies show that about 10% of students still prefer that physical book. So right now, there's over 3,000 courses nationwide that are using open textbooks, and it's growing very rapidly. I read something just recently, a few days ago, and I can't remember the citation, but open textbooks are poised to make up about 25% of the entire textbook market. So, benefits of open textbooks. I've already gone over some of these, but they can be tailored to fit your course. You get the exact textbook that you want. They're accessible 24/7. You get continuous improvement with editing. You can edit these books whenever you want, update them. There's a lot of supplementary material that you can use in an open textbook. Some students learn better maybe by watching videos, by listening to audio. You can add anything you want into an open textbook. Most textbooks, when they're published, a lot of them are outdated very quickly. That does not happen with an open textbook. You can update and add material as often as you like. And of course, the most important thing to students is that they reduce the student expense. The student perks, public interest research group, and you might want to Google them. They have several really good documents on open textbooks. Student Perks, PIRGS. One of their campaigns right now is to make textbooks affordable. One of their latest documents that they've published is called $1 Billion Solution, and that's actually a link to it at the bottom, and you guys will get this presentation. They looked at 5 schools that have open textbook initiatives, and students saved an average of $128 per course if an open textbook was substituted for a standard textbook. So, what I'm going to show you now are several resources for open textbooks. There are a lot of resources out there, a lot. It's very overwhelming, and these are 3 that I chose. I think these 3 are very good, and I chose them for different reasons. OpenStax peer reviews their textbooks, and their claim to fame is that 27% of universities, 27% of degree grading institutions are using one of their textbooks. I believe Princeton's using one of their science textbooks, Stanford's using one of their economics textbooks, and they provide a print version for students. The print versions can be purchased on Amazon. You can actually link from their website. It'll push you out to Amazon to purchase a print version of the book if you want. Now I'm going to go out live to these in just a second. BC Campus are also peer reviewed. What I like about BC Campus, and the reason that I added BC Campus, by the way, BC Campus is it's a consortium of colleges and universities in British Columbia. And I like their site because it gives users a lot of different tools, information on where to get started, on altering textbooks, modifying textbooks. There's a lot of really good information, and I'll show you guys in just a second. And they also provide print versions. You can buy them directly from the site. In Merlot, or Merlot 2, I can't remember when it became Merlot 2. Merlot's been around for a really long time. It's part of the California State University system. They maintain that. And Merlot 3, or Merlot 2 has over 3,000 textbooks. Merlot is a little different than these other sites that I have listed here. Merlot is a repository for open educational resources, so it's not just textbooks. You can find courseware and lesson plans and all sorts of other good stuff on Merlot. And I like Merlot because it's also peer reviewed, but I like the way you can search Merlot. You can search by topic, you can search by peer review. You can even search by the type of Creative Commons license available. Or if you're looking for one that is very open, you can search that way. And the material is also rated by the users of the site. So let me go first of all to OpenStax. And OpenStax it used to be called Connections. OpenStax is maintained by Rice University. And they've been OpenStax is Rice University. Became OpenStax in 2012. It used to be called Connections, but they published their first textbooks in 2012. I think they started out with 2 of them. So this is OpenStax. I like OpenStax because they say free, no strings attached. You can use anything you want on this website. They want to know, though, if you are adopting a textbook. They want to know. Most of these organizations do want to know that information. But let's look at the subjects here. These are the subjects: math, science. There's, I think, one humanities. There's a history book. There's a few social science. Clicking on one of these books, Concepts of Biology, you can view it online. You can download a PDF. You can order the print copy, and it will push you out to Amazon to purchase that print copy. Let's put it online. So Concepts of Biology. Come over here to the left-hand side. If you click on Contents, you get your table of contents, and you simply click through. lots of images. Oh, here's a video right here. I can tell you can use video, audio, all sorts of media in these open textbooks. This video, let's see, where's it going? Okay, it's pushing us out to Wikimedia Commons. So anyway, that's an example of a video used in an open textbook. BC Campus allows you to search for books, adopt a book, and modify a book. And that's my favorite part, is this information on modifying a book. And I've provided this at the end of our presentation, this document on authoring open textbooks. For anybody that's interested, I'm not going to open it, but where to start, how to evaluate the information. BC Campus also provides a rubric or criteria for evaluating textbooks. I've also included that in the resources at the end of the presentation. And let's look at Merlot. All right, this is Merlot. And I told you I like Merlot because you can search multiple ways. Click Advanced Search. You can search by discipline, you can search by material type. So let's just do an example here. Science and technology, and we're looking for material type. We want to use open textbook. You can also select your audience. So I'll select college, lower division. And down here, it allows you to select by type of Creative Commons license, and there's a lot of variables there. All right. And as you can see over here, you can see the ones that are peer-reviewed. And what I don't like about this is the user ratings. They're just ratings. They're star ratings. There's no comments with them, which is unfortunate. Comments, but you can check out the peer reviews and make a decision on if the book will work for you. Now, what you're going to find with Merlot, you're going to see some repetition in Merlot. If you've been out to other open textbook sites and then you go to Merlot, Merlot pushes you out to all these different sites. You're going to see stuff from BC Campus on here. You're going to see stuff from OpenStax on here, since it's a repository. It collects all sorts of information. Any questions so far? Oh, yes, ma'am.
So we can just take all this stuff and reuse it and let them know we're using it. Suppose that I decided to write my own open textbook. Can I just copy and paste some of the materials if I like them into my own open textbook?
You can, but you want to make sure that you look at their copyright license or their Creative Commons license. And make sure you follow the instructions of the Creative Commons license. But yeah, you can take any of this information, adapt it, modify it, however you want. Just make sure you pay attention to that Creative Commons license.
And in most cases, what they're going to ask you for is attribution. That's going to be the main thing. So.
Yeah. Some of them request non-commercial use or share alike, which means you have to use the same Creative Commons license in your book that they use in theirs. All right, Anne?
Good. So now that we've talked a little bit about open educational resources, we want to try to convince you to do it here at Southern Miss. So last year, they started an initiative, and it's really a partnership between the Provost's office and the libraries, where we're encouraging faculty to do just as you were saying, to either adopt an already made open textbook, to modify one, or to create your own. And the libraries are always here to help you with that process. And So we're going to talk about how we do that. But really, like Michelle was saying, one of the main objectives, of course, is to save the students money, because we know that some textbooks cost $200 and $300 just for one class. And we have heard even from our own colleagues with children that that's very burdensome. And also, really, we're looking to improve teaching and learning, because the materials that you create can be targeted, right? You can include Mississippi information, for example. You can include regional information. You don't have to buy the commercial textbook that is good for the entire country. You can make yours more relevant to your teaching situation and your syllabus. And of course, we also want to help faculty development. We want you to learn new technology. We want you to experiment with new materials. And we want you to learn and grow as well. And of course, along with Josh, we're looking to encourage an institutional culture of open access resources. So that's part of what this program is all about. And, you know, if you successfully do a proposal, then you will also get some funding, depending on what classification you're doing. If you just adopt somebody else's, you of course get less than if you're writing your own textbook. And we're gonna, Josh, this is still accurate. You're gonna try to push this through again this year, so you will, of course, be contacted this year if you want to participate. So just let us know. So the next thing we're going to talk about is some library resources that we have created to help you through this process, because we know that the biggest hardship on you as faculty members as you're trying to teach your classes and do your advising and grade and everything is finding relevant materials. Well, that's what research services librarians do. We find information, so we can definitely help you every step of the way with that. And we've also, in participation with other library personnel, we've created 2 research guides that you might be interested in taking a look at. The first one is called the Open Educational Resources Guide. And has several tabs across the top, so I'm going to treat this just like it was a student instruction session and talk a little bit about what the different tabs are. So as Michelle defined some of what OERs even are, they're teaching and learning materials that you can freely use and reuse at no cost. There are pros and cons of OERs. The pros, of course, would be saving the money and reusing materials and creating tailored materials. There are the open textbook collections. Those are what Michelle was demonstrating earlier. So that's where you would find those again if you wanted to follow up on those resources that she was demoing. And then there are the open education repositories, discipline specific. So if you're specifically in the humanities or sciences, you might want to look at those. And then there's an interesting tab called Resources for Faculty, where we have collected some materials that you can follow up on after this session if you're really interested in this process. There are some books with guides to finding materials, there are handbooks, and the BC Campus tools that Michelle had talked about, the toolkits are linked directly from the research guide. Also, there are other campuses that have implemented very similar programs, so you can kind of follow along with what they did and what their success stories are. And then we have this box about university license content. And this is really what we would like for you to focus on if you're going to do a textbook specifically for our area. Because this is one of the things that we did read about in the literature, is that if you link to our library resources and then you try to promote your book nationwide, then of course other students wouldn't be able to access our resources. So this is if you're going to adopt a textbook for USM specifically, then we would like for you to link directly to our resources, because you're already A, paying for them, and B, the more use they get, the more likely it is that we will keep them and keep renewing their licenses. And then I'm going to talk in a few minutes about Creative Commons, but that information can also be found here for later if you want to look at it. And then again, I will review about our own textbook initiative. So the research guide is a very useful tool that I hope that you will come back to again later. And then I'm gonna click on this copyright basics one, but I want to make sure that you realize that, and I think you were here yesterday. Yesterday was the copyright workshop, so we're not gonna be talking really about copyright except to explain how different the Creative Commons is and the fact that we do have these resources available to you in the libraries. If you missed the session yesterday, they did already load the slides into Aquila so that you can access them later. But we do offer a couple of different places for you to find copyright information, and we talk about fair use, what you can use in the classroom. We talk about creating durable links, and this is very important. This is how you use the library resources. You create either, and there's different names for them, a permanent link, a durable link, a stable link, anything that goes through our library system so that we know that it's authenticated users using it. And then, of course, if you really want to use copyrighted materials, you'll have to request permission for that. And so that is kind of the copyright basics part. I will also tell you about another resource that's available for copyright in a second. But we want to get more into other resources that you can use, because like I said, it's possible that you'll want to publish a textbook that goes nationwide. You might want to publish a textbook that does not have as many library resources, but has other publicly available resources. And so there are good places to look for that. So Merlot did have some of these course syllabi lecture notes and video clips, but another really good source for these is called the OER Commons. So I'm just going to show you briefly what that looks like as well. So we're trying to get you familiar with as many resources as we can so that when you come back to it, you'll say, oh yeah, they showed us that, we know what to look for. So this is, again, another one that you can type in what you're looking for. You can look by subject, education level. So since we did the science one, we will do arts and humanities now. And we'll cover some college. And you can see that it's divided as our school is by the different subjects. So there are foreign languages, there's art history, literature, philosophy, religion. So you can get either an open textbook here, or you can get the resources to support the textbooks, the building blocks that we were referring to. So if you just want to see what their syllabus looks like, if you want to see what their class notes or their exams, you can borrow their material. But again, I hope that we've made it clear throughout, but if we haven't emphasized it enough, when you use other people's materials, always give them credit for using their materials because they did create it. So even though they have licensed it as open, they still always request attribution because they are the creators. So that's just fair. And another resource I'm not going to click on, but we want to talk a little bit about YouTube. We do this in discussions with faculty sometimes. They want movies for their classes and they are used to showing them in class. But once you take a class online, you're no longer allowed to do that unless you get streaming rights. So we will frequently come back and say, is there an alternative perhaps to purchasing the streaming rights, which are usually very expensive? And then the subject librarians, us, will go out and look for them. And sometimes we go to YouTube. And we don't necessarily have to go to just general YouTube. There are channels that are created. So there are education channels, there's higher education channels, there's even subject discipline channels. So if you want to look specifically for philosophy videos, you can do that. And we can always show you every step of the way how to do all this. So Michelle talked a little bit about this in answer to your question, but I just want to highlight it one more time because, again, we want to make sure that you are both looking for the correct information and you're giving your own work the correct attribution because you want credit as well. So Creative Commons has several licenses, but there are 4 that are the most commonly done. And the first one is the attribution one, and that's just giving somebody credit. That's just, it's even called CC BY, so it's by, Ann Hudson. So it's just that I created it, I don't care if you use it, change it, do what, copy it, distribute it, whatever you want to with it, as long as you say that Ann Hudson created it. And then there's no derivative works. That means that you can't change it. So this is one that you have to look for. If you're finding materials online and it says no derivative, that means that it's basically as is. So you can take it, but you take it as it is. You can't change it at all. And then there's a share alike license, and that means that you can have it and you can distribute it, but then you also have to do the same license. Like you can't take somebody's open attribution and then suddenly stick no derivatives or some other kind of higher license on it. You have to do the same license that they did. Because that wouldn't be fair for them to have it wide open and then you to close it off. And then non-commercial. Some people are interested in this one because they're afraid that they'll create all of their open access resources and then some big textbook company will sneak in and steal it and then sell it. But really, it's not really that likely because they attribute you. When you do the search for the material, your free version will come up. So it's not very likely that a student will pay for something that they could get for free. But you do have to watch that. And the reason why you look at these, both in terms of when you're looking for materials to reuse in your textbook, is because you want to know what you're allowed to do. Am I allowed to do whatever I want to with it, or am I restricted? And then, once you do create your own textbook, you'll want to stick some sort of license on it, because this is why you do it really. It's because once you copyright it, then everybody has to ask you permission every time they want to even use a page of it, basically. So if you don't want to be bothered all the time with requests for permission, then you should slap some sort of permission on there already so that they don't have to contact you every time. Okay. Yes?
So the trade-off is that you're kind of letting go of letting go of the content to let other people kind of under a trust. And the trade-off is that even though if you put a cease or a Creative Commons non-commercial designation on that, if somebody were to break those rules or just do whatever they want to do with you, really wouldn't have any recourse, right?
Well, if they, you're saying that they're going to break the rules? They're going to go ahead and do something against my license?
No.
Yeah, I have a recourse.
The Creative Commons licenses. I mean, is there? I guess I should have put it in the form of a question because I'm asking the question. Is there, with that licensing regime, is there recourse if you produce something, somebody else breaks that agreement? Because in the copyright registration system, you have legal recourse, right?
Yes.
And it's one of the reasons you do that. So under the Creative Commons system, do you have any recourse if you see somebody's been using the material against the license that you've provided?
I would believe that you did because the license is just another contract. So I mean, it wouldn't be a copyright case per se, but it would be a violation of contract. So I mean,
there's no written agreement or anything. It's kind of an implied contract.
yes,
So
I see what you mean. They're not signing.
It's a pretty loose
But
contract.
as soon as they accept, it's much like those software licenses, like when we download Adobe and stuff. And even on social media, when you click through those things, you always just click and say, yeah, I accept all that. So when you're accepting the Creative Commons, you're actually using the material, you're accepting their Creative Commons rules.
So there is a click-through?
There is not a click-through,
Oh.
but I mean, you're clicking into the document.
Right, well,
But there's not a specific,
yeah.
no, you're right.
Your use implies that you
trickier.
agree with it.
It's trickier than an actual written statement, but you're accepting their written statement on the page by clicking on it.
So if you were, I mean, so it would be, I mean, I don't know a lot of read, but in your estimate, it would be hard to sue somebody who's using it improperly.
Well, I mean, the trick is, it's gonna be hard to find that out, really. I mean, once you find it out, then you have a case. But, I mean, truthfully, I think we all probably, and I shouldn't be saying this on video, but many of us will go into YouTube or Google or someplace and see if there's a document online that we want. And so, in fact, one of our faculty members recently just said to us, right, they load the document into Blackboard instead of using our proxy, and that might cause them to lose the journal because there's no use of the journal. So people do that without getting caught. But I mean, it's definitely an ethical violation at the very least. So you shouldn't. You should definitely, I mean, that's the whole purpose of open resources, is that they're open to share. All you have to do is give credit, and that's just basic human decency. They spent all the time creating it, you should give them credit. But you're right, I mean, every once in a while somebody will probably sneak through and make a copy of your chapter. And you know, it's too bad. They shouldn't do that, but you know, people are people. There are bad people in the world.
It is worth noting that the books are still under copyright, that if you, even if you're using the CC license, unless it's the CC0, which is when you actually are putting something in the public domain. But so all the license is doing is you as the copyright holder telling other people how they can use the material. So technically, if they're violating the terms of that license, they are violating your copyright because you still own the copyright and you're telling them how.
Creative Commons
So it's a
doesn't
different
replace it.
registration system
Yeah.
rather than the federal system. It's a self-imposed license.
Yeah, because federally the copyright is still yours. It's the author is still yours. The license is just the permissions you are granted
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, Creative Commons
Yeah.
makes it clear that, you know, you still have copyright. They don't replace, it does not replace copyright.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just a way of saying how to share it without.
Ahead of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
without
Yes,
giving
that's
permission
exactly
to
what it
everybody.
is.
Proactively.
But I think that it would still hold up as a copyright.
Yeah, I would
if
think
that's
so,
the
too.
case. I mean.
Yeah,
so you would
I
still
mean,
have
again, it would be
retribution.
depending on what you did, because like you guys talked about yesterday, there's always sliding scales with the copyright law and how much they can use or not use. But again, they talked about that yesterday. So the next thing that we wanted to talk to you about is if you're now all excited about doing these open access resources, where do you start? And so one of the first ways you can start is to find a book that's already out there in the open textbook collections that Michelle demonstrated, or the ones on the open access, the guide, the research guide that you have the link to now. You should use the same sort of criteria that you use when you're selecting your textbook now. I mean, I assume that you're not just going out to Amazon and purchasing a book for your textbook. You're actually reviewing it. You're taking a look at the chapters. You're seeing what sections might be relevant to your classes. You're seeing if it's up to date. There's all sorts of criteria that we're assuming that you already use when you select a textbook for your class, and you should do the exact same thing with open access materials. Just because it's been peer reviewed and it's out there does not mean that it will meet your needs, so you should still review each book that you want to use. And then, as we've been saying all the way through, you have to decide what you want to do with it. Do you want to adopt it as is? Is it just perfect? Or do you want to modify it and somehow add material or subtract material? Or do you want to create one on your own? And then, of course, we always say throughout the entire presentation, contact us. Definitely contact us for help. We can look at the resources with you. We can find you new resources. We can substitute the resources that are already there for newer, more current materials. And then once you've done all this, you'll need to, like we've just been talking about, decide what kind of license you want to give. Do you want it to be just open and out there? Or are there some of the restrictions that you want to add? And then you give it to your students next year and you get your award, and everybody starts using open access, and we're all happy customers. So these are the resources that Michelle has pretty much collected for you, some of the links that we've already discussed, but we wanted you to have them in two places in case you just want to go to the resources sheet as a handout. And now Michelle and I are free to answer more questions. So anything else pop to your mind while we've been talking, or anything about open and access resources you've been thinking about and you can't decide if you want to implement one or not?
I have a question. Josh, when is the next initiative? I mean, when is that going to be announced?
It'll be announced at the end of this month.
At the end of October, and then that will be informed by the end of December?
Correct. So we'll
Okay.
accept applications through November, probably early December, and then
Okay.
by the end of the year.
All right.
I have a question, Ann. You mentioned accessing YouTube for additional resources. When you do that, how can you make sure that that video is not infringing the copyright of that resource?
Well, that's a good question, and that's why you should contact your subject to the library. Because we will review it ourselves and see if it's from an original source and not from, Gidget.com.
I asked that because, for those of you who don't know, I order materials for the libraries, and often people will ask, well, I don't want to pay $500 for licensing for this DVD. Can I just use the free one on YouTube?
Well,
So,
it very much depends, because
Yeah.
many times that they are just pirated copies
Right.
from the theater.
Right.
But sometimes places, after they've been screened and publicity has been granted, they will actually upload at least snippets, if not entire clips. And that's usually what you want to use in your class, right? You're not going to actually, on an online class, show an entire film for hours. That would be relatively boring for your students. So what we're hoping is that you would find the important parts of the film and have class discussion and do things interactively with the film. So snippets, clips, shorter versions from official sources are good. But no, not, yes, not pirated versions. I promise I won't do that.
And if you use it that way, it opens up the door for fair use that way more, right?
Yes.
Rather than just showing the whole.
Yes, exactly right, because that online classroom situation is very tricky. So, it's the wave of the future, it's what we're going to do, but dealing with copyright within that is hard, because a lot of times faculty just want to take their in-person class, put it in Blackboard and say, okay, I'm good. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the house you're on, you can't do that.
So we should never use anything on YouTube unless we're sure that it's from the original source.
I would contact.
I wouldn't say never, but I would definitely trust but verify with
Yeah,
everything.
I would-
Even links that you use, I would trust but
Well, if
verify.
you know it's not from the original source.
Yeah,
Should never use it.
Yeah, no.
probably best not. Unless they somehow are showing that they have the right to do it. Like if maybe they've created an open access resource and have the Creative Commons. A lot of times, like Michelle said, you can filter your search results by Creative Commons license. So I do that a lot.
We were talking yesterday, but Google has, you can search
Yes.
your images by license type now. So if you're looking for images to help, you can actually go into the advanced image search and search by license type. So that makes it first shows you all the images available, and then you click the ones that are free to use, and it narrows it. But there's still a lot out there that are all open.
There's several good websites too that collect public domain images. There's a lot of them out there.
I have a couple of films that I show that I probably shouldn't be showing.
Unlike Okay, well, that's okay. This is all an educational process. That's what this is all about. Oh, and I did not mention that, speaking of which. The other educational tool that we have is lib.wayne.usm.edu/copyright. And they have the copyright comments. And so those are educational resources. So you can find those there. I was going to click off into that, but I did not. So I had the copyright question. Anything else? Okay.
No more questions?
Then Michelle and I are
Thanks.
happy to stay after for a while.